How's it going, YouTube? Thanks for clicking in. Today, I wanted to do a well deserved little show on something called Spring Hill Jack. This is one of the most fascinating urban stories I've ever heard. It's the weirdest encounter I can think of that I just can't really figure out what was going on back then. Um, let's give some a little bit of background to him, and I'll tell you the description, some of them, and what some of the people that were attacked by him said. So there's a good bit of research to be done here. He seems to have started in 1837, and he started being seen in the little villages in Great Britain, London suburbs. He's been seen in the Midland and in Scotland, so he has gotten around a lot. And then he seemed to have stopped popping up in 1904. So that's a good many years there that either more than one person was going around in costume, able to leap very high. And so this is very strange, and I cannot pinpoint exactly what was going on here. I don't know if anybody ever will. What I'm really trying to determine is whether he's a supernatural entity or somebody that was dressing up in costume. And the most likely would be he was somebody dressing up in a costume, being a prankster. But this guy seemed to prey mostly on women. Um, and he actually assaulted a few victims. So it's more than a prankster. And this is a very strange story, and something that's still being talked about to this day. Um, he he was, I guess, as a general description, he was tall and skinny. Most people said he had bat wings, and he had glowing eyes like fire, but he also had claws that were cold. Some of the witnesses and people that were assaulted by him said his hands were clammy and cold and clawed. So I'm trying to think, back then at this time, it wouldn't be impossible to have a costume like this. And he does have um, different appearances. I've read a few things that said he was wearing like a bear skinned thing around him. So very strange. And so that's what makes me want to say, well, this is a human dressed up because it seemed like he had a mask on. Maybe some kind of bat wing cloak looking thing. Um, my immediate question is this some kind of like first superhero vigilante, or is it a supernatural being? My gut tells me the people that saw the one with the bearskin coat may have been what do you say, a look-alike, an imposter, maybe another person trying to perpetuate and have fun with the whole Spring Hill Jack thing. Kids were, and I'm just taking all this from what I read out of memory. Um, it seems like a lot of children saw him peering through their window, which a lot of intelligent cryptids, seem to do. Um, And it's just a very strange thing that happened, and I don't think we'll ever know exactly what would happen or what happened there, what he was. Um, and I'll read some articles here, maybe read through some of them, maybe some of the assaults that were reported. Um, anyway, his general description, if somebody was wearing a clawed gloves that they made, that could be made back then, but how would you get them cold and clammy as a corpse? And how would he illuminate red balls of fire for eyes and and a tight fitting white garment? So that wouldn't be too hard to do, and a black cloak. You got to remember some of the sightings of this guy, people would have been terrified. It was nighttime. So, to me, if he was wearing a helmet, it doesn't seem like that would be some kind of supernatural entity or being. Because most of your like cryptids, they're not wearing masks. The only thing that makes me think, and some of these, you got to remember, some of these descriptions, they're being embellished for a little while because it was a little while before the papers even wrote anything about him. So there's reports of him jumping over entire houses, jumping from rooftops, jumping over walls in one leap and buildings. So we don't know exactly if he did those type of things, because if he was jumping over entire houses, I just don't see what kind of technology somebody could have secretly had back then to actually accomplish that. But we don't know if he actually jumped over entire houses. You can bet that he had some kind of ability to jump really high, because several witnesses described him jumping impossible distances. So this one just doesn't fit into any kind of category. Um, some people said he could breathe out blue and white flames, kind of described as a phosphorus breath. Um, One of the most famous reports of Spring Hill Jack was by Mary Stevens. She was a servant girl, and she claims he jumped out from a dark alley, grabbed her with a tight grip, kissed her, ripped off her clothes, and she managed to escape. But when others tried to help her find him, no one saw him. So you never know if, I don't think if she was just wanting attention, she would have ripped her clothes off. That's just a thought. The day after she got attacked, uh, Spring Hill Jack was seen near her house, and he jumped in the way of a carriage passing by, and the driver kind of went off the road, severely injuring himself. And the creature reportedly escaped by jumping over a 9-foot wall. And so, if this was a vigilante, uh, kind of like a superhero hero character, maybe, um, what could he have had that made him jump that high? That's very strange, because this Spring Hill Jack is displaying incredible things, like breathing out, different colored flames. And if he was wearing a mask, how did he kiss Mary Stevens? She said he kissed her. Um, and so that's very strange. Another newspaper story about Spring Hill Jack was from the Times, and on February 19th, 1838, Alsop answered the door to a man claiming to be a police officer. He asked her for a candle, and when she retrieved one for him, he threw off his cloak to reveal a hideous form with the clothing that resembled oilskin. Then he tore off her clothes, so this guy likes to tear off women's clothes with his claws. And she claimed they were made of a metallic substance. So this could have been some man-made claws, gloves. And then she ran for safety. He managed to tear at her neck and arms, but she eventually was saved by her sister, and the creature ran away again before being caught. Um, so that's another strange, eyewitness encounter. Um, and Spring Hill Jack was capable of speaking English. Uh, some people described him as having a high pitched, ringing laugh that he released after scaring his victims and running away. So this guy or entity liked to scare people and also attack them. So I don't really remember him stealing anything, and I haven't done an exhaustive research on it. But I don't remember running across that he was using this to steal anything. So this is a very nefarious way to get your thrills. You know what I mean? So like I said earlier, some accounts of Spring Hill Jack uh had him dressed up in furs to appear like a bear. And in one case, he growled at a gardener, climbed the garden wall, and chased the gardener on all fours till he finally decided to leave. So that's strange. And again, something tells me that may have been a copycat, but that's just a gut feeling. Um, one guy actually claimed to be Spring Hill Jack, Thomas Milbank. He was arrested and tried at Lambeth Street Court because he claimed that he was Spring Hill Jack. So this guy actually claimed he was Spring Hill Jack. And the only reason why he wasn't convicted was because he admitted to not being able to spit fire, which Jane Alsop claimed he could do. And I don't know if or why they didn't ask him to jump a 9-foot wall or something like that, but he admitted he could not spit fire. It's strange to think somebody would want to claim this for fame, but I guess people will want some fame. I don't know why you would claim to be Spring Hill Jack when you weren't, but sound like this guy, they didn't convict him, and I bet they would have liked to convict somebody for all this, and they didn't convict him, so he must have not been too believable. Um, Another man got arrested named Captain Finch. He was convicted of assaulting two women while wearing a skin coat, which looked like a bullock's hide, a skull cap, horns, and a mask. And so that's kind of strange, but this guy may have liked to attack women and just made his own costume because it doesn't say anything about him doing anything, extraordinary like jumping real far, breathing fire, or anything like that. And so when you have stuff like this happening, you have a lot of copycats and rumors and stuff. So it's hard to dig through when something like this happened so long ago. Um, the Lord Mayor accused a group of young aristocrats of being responsible for Spring Hill Jack after they made an irresponsible wager with a companion to dress as a bear, a ghost, and the devil himself. So you did have, after a while, it was becoming a legend, and so you did have a lot. Seems like you had a lot of people dressing up, trying to be Spring Hill Jack. Um, that's that's a just a weird story, and there's a lot of information on it too. Um, yeah, that is strange. Um, the Morning Post reported of a victim he had on March 7th, 1838. An 18-year-old Lucy Scales was walking home with her sister after visiting her brother in the Limehouse area of East London. Part of their journey home took them down a passage called Green Dragon Alley, and Lucy was in front when she noticed a figure lurking in the shadow. Before she could retrace her steps, the figure sprang and attacked her with a quantity of blue flame. So he's spitting blue flame at her that left her unconscious. That's pretty curious there. Her sister's screams alerted her brother, and the attacker fled into the night. So, uh, after if any of the women alerted anybody, that he seemed to run away pretty quickly. Um, some of the other descriptions, it says here the women all described him as having claws that he used to tear their clothing and rake their skin. So this is a physical being, of course. There was a barmaid called named Polly Adams, and she said the claws were being cold and clammy on her skin, and so did Jane Alsop. Stated that um, there was some metallic substance. So the original Spring Hill Jack definitely had some kind of probably homemade claws that were made out of metal, and that's probably why a few witnesses said they were cold. Um, a lot of witnesses described him as heavily cloaked when they first encountered him, with his head being covered by a helmet. Um, Lucy Scales had thought the mysterious figure in the Green Dragon Alley might have been a woman from the appearance of his headgear. This cloak or helmet was removed to reveal that the mysterious attacker had a devil like appearance. So, this is interesting. And this is a hint that this might have been a supernatural entity, um, which would make sense of him being able to do extraordinary feats. But she said that after his cloak or helmet was removed, which he seems to have liked to do, the mysterious attacker had a devil like appearance. Jane Alsop described once he had thrown back his cloak back, she noticed Spring Hill Jack had a most hideous and frightful appearance, and the eyes like red balls of fire. So here you have a pretty credible witness, Jane Alsop, one of the most famous witnesses of Spring Hill, um, and she doesn't seem to be describing um, a person that was just wearing a mask. He would walk around with like a mask on, or he was heavily cloaked, so he could have like a cloak over his head. But he seems to have liked to remove his cloak when attacking somebody. And she described a hideous and frightful looking being with eyes that had that looked like red balls of fire. So, to me, if her account is true, it would be very hard to create something like that. Um, just that it's not impossible for somebody to have created some kind of, some kind of uh, thing that made his eyes, glow red. But red balls of fire, you know, it doesn't sound like they were just self-illuminated eyes. This is there. Several people said red balls of fire, what his eyes look like. So now I'm leaning into more of a supernatural type creature, because if you discount all those people that were saying that, he's wearing a bear skins and stuff like that, and you look at the really credible witnesses that were in the newspapers and stuff, some of them actually saw a very strange entity, not just somebody dressed up. Because you got to remember, if this person or thing was just dressed up, he had to have some kind of special boots on or something that let him jump 9 feet, at least 9 feet. Some people said they witnessed him jumping on a house or over a house and buildings and stuff. And so this is pretty strange. Um, and here is talking about Jane also described her attackers wearing a tight-fitting white oil-skin garment, and this garment was linked to another aspect of his appearance, fire. Both Lucy Scales and Jane Alsop referred to Spring Hill Jack either carrying a lantern or asking someone for light. This need for light had nothing to do with enhancing Spring Hill Jack's unnerving appearance, but everything to do with one of his particular abilities. Um, that's pretty strange. What does that mean? That once he borrowed a lantern from somebody, maybe he had like that kind of gas or whatever flammable liquid in his mouth, like fire breathers have. I don't know. That's real shady. I can't really pinpoint whether or not this was a supernatural entity or a person dressed up. And this being was very agile too, so you can't just say that this was somebody in a disguise, which is just very strange. Most of the time, when you're talking about supernatural entities, they're not wearing cloaks and clothes or using lanterns or anything like that. So it's very strange. Um, one other ability um, that he had was he was quick on his feet, incredibly quick, allowing him to flee the scene of his crimes without a trace. But again, his primary skill was the ability to leap into the air to an improbable height. One of the first descriptions of this ability came in the aftermath of the initial attacks in 1837, when a businessman reported seeing a leaping man on Barnes Common. Witnesses credited Jack with the ability to leap over obstacles between 6 and 20 feet in height. Now, what kind of special boots could a person have made back then to allow them to jump that high? Um, that's a question that comes up in my mind. Um, that's just a trip. Um, so it says here, Spring Hill Jack left proof of a more earthly explanation in the aftermath of Mary Stevens' attack on Clapham Common. Investigators discovered 3-inch deep footprints near Clapham Church, each bearing the mark of a spring. Now that's interesting. So that is a some evidence left behind that he did have maybe springs on the bottom of his boots. Maybe I just don't see how somebody could do that without breaking their ankles, but maybe he had reinforced boots on or something. Um, that discovery was followed on December 30th by descriptions by the residents of a figure wearing a bearskin and sprung shoes that allowed him to jump to and fro. Um, Again, that's a sighting of somebody wearing a bearskin. Not sure if that's a copycat or not. So again, not sure whether this was paranormal, supernatural, or somebody dressing up and having some kind of apparatus on them to allow them to do all this kind of stuff, which again isn't impossible. I wish I could find a very detailed description of his horrifying face. I'm having trouble ascertaining on whether what exactly his face looked like. It's a very general description. I wish one of these ladies could have given a better description of his face so we could tell whether or not it was actually a mask or he was deformed or whether or not he might have actually been supernatural or not. That's uh that's pretty amazing. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to go over Spring Hill Jack. This has always fascinated me. When I heard about him, first read the story maybe 15, 20 years ago, I decided to go back and do a little bit of research on him. And this is one of the weirdest, most abnormal sightings I can think of. And I just feel like this deserves being out there. I just wanted to talk about him. What do you guys think? Do you think this was a supernatural entity, or do you think he was just a person that had maybe some kind of gadgets on him that allowed him to breathe fire and allowed his eyes to glow like fireballs and allowed him to jump incredible distances without breaking his ankles? I know if I try to put springs on the bottom of my shoes, probably end up breaking an ankle. So, what do you guys think about it? Leave some comments below. If you guys want to be on Abnormal Truth and tell your supernatural, strange encounters, could be alien, ghosts, crypto, whatever, shoot me an email at the abnormal truth at gmail.com and give me a description of all the things you have seen and whether or not you would like to be on my eyewitness show. And I appreciate you guys for clicking in. And if you haven't subscribed yet, or like the video, please uh go ahead and do that if you would like. And that's it for now. I'll see you guys soon with another video.